Hello everyone, this is AutoML Training Working Group Community Call on 24th of July. This meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct, and this meeting will be recorded and published on YouTube. So maybe we can start maybe with a quick introduction. Do we have anyone here on the call, maybe any new folks who just want to introduce themselves to the community? Just maybe want to say hello.
Hi, this is my first time. I'm Alan from SCEDMD.
Nice to meet you, Alan. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Any other folks who want to say hi?
Hi, this is Marla Wernicke. I'm also from SCEDMD.
Nice to see you in this call. Nice to see you, Marla. Is it like first time joining the Kubeflow calls, community calls? Or you've been doing some other working groups before?
I was running a Kubeflow on-prem group several years ago, but it's been a while.
All right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I know we have a demo a few months from you guys, right? So just let me know if you want to postpone it, like a specific date.
We'll be fine. We're doing a demo next Monday at the working group batch in the
All right.
runtimes group, so we'll have one running by then.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, would love to see this demo, and maybe if you have time, maybe we can also present it to one of the training working groups as well. Call maybe sometime in August when you have time. Yeah, because I would
We'd
love
be
to.
happy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Marla. Anyone else want to say hello? Or we can get started. All right, that sounds good. So just before we jump into the agenda items, I just want to give a quick update for the release. So let me just share my screen. So we finally released with Training Operator 1.8 and a tip 0.17. So for Training Operator 1.8, we created this official release. The one of the most important features is this new Python API for LLM fine tuning. So again, there was a huge effort for the last couple of months. I think we started this from December last year. So the main idea was to simplify ability for data scientists to fine-tune LLMs on multiple distributed PyTorch workers, and just provide a simple Python API where they can just define what model they want to tune, what data set they want to use, and what high-in-phase trainer arguments they want to pass. So please take a look. We have a good documentation for this new feature. So please take a look. And again, this feature is in the alpha stage. So just we kind of try to collect feedback from, especially from users, to see whether it gives you some value, what things you want to improve there, and what is the direction we need to move forward. Because especially with the new Training Operator V2 API, we would love to understand how we can make fine-tuning easier on the Kubernetes specifically. Especially because the thing is all the infrastructure pieces are already there. We just want to provide a simple interfaces for data scientists to quickly experiment with the new models, especially with all this trends around more companies open sourcing their models. You want to quickly fine tune them. Maybe you want to create your own kind of an application on top. So there is a demand for quick ability to use Kubernetes machinery and Kubernetes advanced techniques to quickly fine tune LLMs. I know that many people don't use Kubernetes today for large scale training. Maybe they use some other HPC type of clusters, but we still can see all the value of doing this on Kube. And I think we can definitely have some sort of the improvements in this area moving forward. So please take a look. This feature is extremely powerful and very, very simple to use. So we just want to see what kind of feedback and other things you can give us. Yeah, so other things for the release, we have few breaking changes. Specifically, we're supporting a new version of Python and SDK, we're supporting a new version of Kubernetes, and also we introduced some other parameters. We kind of deprecating MX job in the future because Apache MXNet was archived, the project was archived. So we're planning to remove the support for MX job moving forward. And we have some control plan updates for webhook validation, for other types of jobs, and other updates for SDK, which significantly, again, simplify experience for the scientists, how they can create the jobs. Because I guess we want to provide a very simple way for data scientists to use Kubernetes without actually understanding that all these pieces are running on top of Kubernetes. So our goal is to simplify the experience moving forward even more. yeah, a few bug fixes and some other like improvements. Please take a look. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions about the release. Any questions so far for training operator release? Right. So for KDP also released 0.17. Again, like we have few breaking changes in SDK, specifically supporting new protobuf version, dropping some converter support, and again removing some MXNet examples from the repo completely. Some other like improvements for core features and SDK, again similar to training operator. We try to simplify ability for data scientists to even do hyperparameter tuning. So especially with this new kind of APIs for training operator, we also try to think about how we can create an API for hyperparameter optimization for KTIP project. So after we kind of like integrating the new version of API and training operator, probably we think about how we can make it consistent across multiple pieces of Kubeflow components with a very simple interfaces for data scientists. Yeah, so please take a look. Let us know if you have any suggestions here as well and any problems with the new 0.17 release. All right, any questions for the release so we can move forward to this discussion about model registry? Sounds good. So Nick, do you want to chime in to discuss the hyperparameter types model registry?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we are sort of implementing some types that we needed for hyperparameter optimization, and as part of the model registry anyway for what we're doing, and we're hoping to sort of get it into the model registry upstream, and sort of wanted to get people's feedback on for Khatib. Obviously, we would like it to be beneficial for Khatib. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the question is here, like what kind of role of model registry you view for KDP? Because just to remind like everyone for the architecture standpoint, right? Today we have our own database to store metrics for hyperparameter optimization. I think we have this new architecture diagram, so we can take a look. Yeah, so I think the idea of these trials where we run the training job, actually we have a custom metrics collector which actually collects some results to the KTPDB. And right now on KTPDB is kind of like the instance of MySQL or Postgres, when any other DB you want to like integrate, and we store the training, like the optimization metrics there, like where there's accuracy, loss, or any other metrics you want to store to collect. And based on these metrics, you actually will produce the hyperparameters. So I think my question is like, what is the role of model registry you see for hyperparameter optimization job, and what exactly do we want to store there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think from what we were initially using it for was was more the data for sort of larger models when we were doing sort of training sets around sort of optimization work for GPUs in particular. But yeah, that was what we initially sort of started working on it for internally.
Yeah, because like I know that, for example, right now you kind of have this, location for your artifacts, right? For your models. I think the question is like, looking at this issue, I know there is some proposal how we can store some other like parameters for hyperparameter optimization, like some metadata parameters, right? I think my question is like, so do you know like what is the roadmap for model registry to support not only artifacts for other types of ML lifecycle? Like, or you haven't thought about the schema yet?
I think we thought about the schema, but it's still obviously in discussion with the model registry. What they think. I still need to attend one of their meetings and sort of get that sorted. I spoke to Ramesh a little bit, and obviously he seems to be keen, but it's yeah.
Yeah, so any kind of action items you think we can do, you might mean maybe, you know, like going deeply to understand like the APIs for currently how can it do hyperparameter optimization, or what do you think we should do for the short term to the medium term?
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
To be honest, I probably need to think about it more. I think short term, I sort of, from my perspective, I kind of wanted to get some eyes on it and sort of see if we're just going completely in the wrong direction, whether it doesn't help the team at all, or whether it needs to stay as its own thing, or how we feel about that.
Yeah, because I think the question is, I mean, definitely, you know, hyperparameter optimization API might be different framework to framework, right? Like, you know, Aptuna. So the concept is kind of like the same, you know, like you just need to run like multiple trials to optimize the training, right? And then collect the results, and then, you know, going back to the optimization algorithm, like whether you're relying Bayesian optimization or grid search or random search, right? And this optimization. The problem is like sometimes there is more kind of, you know, complex algorithms. Like for example, you know, like some algorithms might require collecting results, intermediate results during the training, like for example, population-based training, or especially sometimes you kind of like need to inject some algorithm parameters during the training job. So I think the question is like, can we define the metadata which will be kind of, you know, generic across all the optimization use cases, right? Um, yeah, and just to see, yeah, how we can support it, right? Um, yeah, because I guess the question is like, we definitely we store it. So right now we don't store every other parameters in the DB, right? We just use the Kubernetes, you know, etcd to store other, you know, configurations, like whether it's, you know, trial hyperparameters, right, or trial results, and we need DB for kind of like more, you know, the metrics which actually cannot be stored in a key value pair, because it requires a lot of, you know, it just needs some more kind of, you know, more complex store to store the results, right? So like, for example, like, you know, like I'm talking about like the metrics from the training job, right? You might collect like, you know, few thousands of like accuracy results from every, like, you know, for every epoch, right? And this is why you just cannot store, you know, few thousand rows in the in the YAML, right? In the CRD. For this, we're kind of using the database, right? Yeah, so I don't know, like, I mean, I would love to like maybe understand more from Ramesh or like from Unique, like what are you proposing? Like, what is the role for model registry? You know, and how it could be beneficial.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I can't speak too much for model registry specifically, but I think from me at least, the goal would be to keep it as sort of just generic as possible, to keep the flexibility. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I think I'll probably
yeah.
have to talk to the model registry more,
Okay.
and get probably more in-depth opinions.
And do you view the model registry as also some sort of metadata store for what are like, you know, metadata?
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, because I guess like I remember we've been discussing that this could be, so some metadata metrics might be beneficial for like serving, for how you kind of versioning your models, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, basically the information about your models that you want to like, you know, understand while you do all the stages of ML life cycle, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because I guess, yeah, it would be interesting to understand like what kind of metadata is interesting for, especially for like data scientists and MLEs, right? When they, you know, publish model to production. For example, like when they publish model to production, right? They want to probably version this model, right? Do they want to understand like how, you know, accuracy was, you know, was propagated during the time frame, during the training, or they don't really, you know, like need this information at all once they have this final model in production, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I mean, I think what would be nice if you can just, maybe give us some proposal or some ideas what exactly you want to store there and how we can definitely help from the, from the KDIP side, from the tune job side. And I don't know, like, and then just to see what kind of integrations exactly we're looking for, right?
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
All right. Yeah, I think we're applying to. So I know Stefano was asking us about the gradation of KDIP API, and it's been a while since we're running this in the beta API for the last, I think, 3 years, even 4 years, I think. So we might want to graduate the hyper. So the problem is of KDIP right now, we try to kind of, serve different, AutoML techniques. So there is a neural architecture search, right? There is a hyperparameter optimization. So for example, like when you also maybe want to do model compression, right? There's also like we have some other like other compression algorithms that also can be part of AutoML journey. But for most of the people, as I can see right now, just do the hyperparameter optimization, and this is kind of like the algorithms is already like mature enough. So maybe we can think about how we can graduate the tuning capabilities to the V1 soon, especially after we have all these new features from the GSOC students that we're working on, which probably should be part of the V1 release. Yeah. Yeah, because eventually I think we want to split the API between the tuning optimization, architecture search, maybe a compression in the future, because I guess these different AutoML techniques might require different APIs. And this is why we might need to have different CRDs for this. Yeah, but anyway, I think we're still kind of like working in the middle of, thinking about when we want to graduate the API for tuning jobs. Right. Any other questions? Yeah, so on this, I guess, let's definitely follow up. So Nick, let us know once you get any clarification from model registry team. And if you want to submit any kind of like a proposal, we can also, create a Google Doc and maybe like work together to see what specific, short-term integrations we can do, right?
Yep, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Do we have, so I already tried to ping, let me just try to take a look on this issue. Just a second. So the one of the demo that we want to give this call today is from Jeffrey about the automation of racks. So I know we have, let me just share my screen. Just a second. So I have this this proposal to actually try to see whether we can leverage the KTIP API to do the automation for trivial, for X, right? So the thing is, like, I guess, like reading the paper, I don't really see a lot of differences of, you just using the, optimization for hyperparameters. So we can define some hyperparameters and just do the optimization for X. So I know we have like this kind of project. I think it's, what is it? I think it's this one, which basically allows folks to, leverage the optimization of hyperparameters. So maybe we can have some sort of a demo, like maybe not on this call, but maybe sometime in the next calls when, they will be available to give a quick introduction just to see, whether we can leverage the optimal pipeline while we're doing the optimization. Because I guess the thing is, like, the beauty of KDIP, like, it's abstract enough to actually optimize literally anything. So it could not be only related to the training, right? It could also be related to serving or to other parts of, ML pipeline where you want to optimize. Because if I show the architecture of KDIP, right, like we can literally optimize any type of job here, which means I think we are kind of like generic enough to maybe like, help to solve this issue on top of Kubernetes, especially on the large scale. So I would love to see like what kind of like, because I didn't have a chance to actually review deeply how this algorithm works. Yeah, but maybe just to see what kind of integrations we can have there. Yeah. Any questions for this? Right, sounds good. So yeah, I also want to like maybe speak quickly about like our updates for the training with 2 APIs. So do you have any other topics that you want to talk about today? Okay, so let me just maybe give you an update. So we, after working for quite some time with the Batch working group and also with other folks from the Kubernetes and Kubeflow community, we finally created this enhancement proposal. So we still kind of like we have a lot of really great comments from the from different community members. So we're still trying to finalizing the APIs and start working on this in this quarter. So I think like the main idea of, let me just share this. So what we try to do again, like to remind everyone, we try to see how we can integrate the Kubeflow training operator within job sets with the new kind of workload, which allows you to spawn multiple jobs within the group, and then just to see how we can improve the experience for data scientists who want to quickly fine tune, train their models on Kubernetes cluster. So I think the main idea was to create let me just make this diagram a little easier to understand. So just to create two set of the workloads called the train job and the training runtime. And the main idea was to create a set of blueprint that we can support from the community side and also give ability to platform engineers to modify the training runtimes. And these training runtimes will like will actually contain the complex configuration for the job set and also for other like advanced scheduling techniques like gang scheduling and also like elastic policy. So the user who actually submitting the training job, they don't really need to worry about all these complexities, because some of the parameters, like for example failure policy, success policies, or even elastic policy for PyTorch, usually they kind of like pre-configured by default. And usually when you just want to do training, right, or you want to like fine tune another model, you usually don't really change these parameters. And we just want to see how to find a balance, which parameters can be changed by data scientists and which parameters needs to be managed by platform engineers. So these blueprints will actually have a state-of-the-art runtimes, which users can reuse across the cluster. And the creation of train job, of course, can be, via kubectl or Python SDK to even simplify more, like, data scientists, they don't want to build Docker images, right? So we can integrate the ability to build Docker image inside the Python SDK or provide some additional functionalities on top. Yes, and then, when you start a train job, you actually fetch the spec from the training runtime and create the job set, which will actually create the distributed cluster to run training or fine-tuning, right? Yeah, so we kind of like end up with some of the APIs here, and just to give an update. So the train job right now looks like this. We have this the parameters that the data scientist can override from the runtime, like the parameters for trainer, the parameters for dataset, the parameters for the model config, and the reference to the blueprint, like to the training runtime. And the parameters for trainer, like the example of train job looks like this, right? So the data scientists just need to specify what runtime they want to use, and what kind of training loop they want to modify from the runtime. Like they can pass an image, they can also pass the commands, They can pass how many nodes they want to use, how many resources per node they want to use. So we try to make it very like we try to name these parameters the same as you do for PyTorch distributed training or maybe API training. So there is a concept of the node and there is a concept of the worker inside the nodes. Because eventually, like if you take a look at this diagram, like when you start the distributed training job, you kind of like spin up multiple nodes. Like in the Kubernetes world, it is called the pods. And then inside every pod, you might have like, multiple GPUs. And every GPU is actually a single worker where you actually run the part of your training job. So this is why we try to make this naming consistent with what actually PyTorch or TensorFlow or other like, communities are familiar with, right? Yeah, so this is how the train job looks like. Also, the example of submission, exactly the same job using the Python SDK, right? Like you can just use the train API to pass the function you want to train and how many nodes and how many resources you have for every node that you want to run in distributed training job. Also, we have a lot of advantages with this to provide the blueprints for fine-tuning. Like we want to like implement the recipes for all the famous like, models, whether it is Llama, Gamma, Mistral, or any other like model we have in Hugging Face. We're going to provide a set of configurations and a set of blueprints so you can quickly fine-tune them on a cluster, on the Kubernetes cluster with predefined configuration. So we kind of like can help you to understand, for example, like if you want to use MPI, we can give you the MPI runtime to fine-tune this model, maybe using deep speed, for example, right? Or like if you want to use Torch Run, we can give you the runtime to fine-tune Llama on like on third-party cloud using the Torch behind the scenes to do the fine-tuning. And the experience looks like this. So again, data scientists can pass the dataset config and the model config, or even they can skip some of the things. So for example, like we have a runtime for like Llama 7B, and you just want to maybe pass your custom dataset and just do the fine tuning instead of like modifying any other parameters for the model, right? And also we want to support the things kind of like output and input. Like for example, when the training job is complete, we want to output your trained model to maybe registry or to S3 or to OCI, wherever you want to store the model. Any questions so far for the APIs design? Okay, so yeah, just an update like that. This trainers API, again, as I mentioned, this dataset config. Yeah, this is some things how we're passing this to initializer, the model config. And also again, like the one of the examples how the training runtime might look like. I think we have it. Yeah, this is the training runtime API. So in training runtime, again, this is just a blueprint, as I mentioned, where platform engineers can configure the blueprint for data scientists to use. And there they can specify the whole job set spec, how many nodes they want to use, and the ML spec. So inside the ML spec, we try to like store the framework specific parameters when it is necessary. Like for example, PyTorch supports PyTorch Elastic. So we want to store some Elastic parameters, like PyTorch Elastic parameters under ML spec, or maybe for MPI, you want to configure what kind of implementation you want to use, where this OpenMPI, Intel, MPI, Sage, that you want to specify in your runtime, which can be consumed afterwards inside train job. We also like it has some discussion also in the thread around whether we want to support other like workload schedulers like Flux or Slurm to even like have more, maybe have other runtime to maybe like run the training job or maybe even HPC job, right? With pre-configured runtime using Slurm, for example, right? I think this also can be integrated, and we can think about how like this can be extended to support other workload managers. The question would be like whether you can implement everything inside job set, right? When you do your training with using the Flux cluster, for example. We had some discussion, I think, on the thread that yes, it is possible. but I would love to maybe understand more about like specifically for the Slurm use cases, right? Like, can you use job set to start a Slurm cluster and then, you know, schedule your training workloads on top of this cluster? Yeah, so I think that will be really interesting for us to understand and to see whether we can extend this API to support other use cases, right? Yeah, so okay, I think this is pretty much it. So yes, we have the job set spec, number of nodes, ML spec, and also gang scheduler. So gang scheduler is for you know, other gang scheduler like Volcano or schedule plugins. We have this kind of like API for this. And the training runtime looks like the simple one looks like this, right? So I have the cluster training runtime, which the main differences between training runtime and cluster training runtime, like cluster, like it's just one is namespace scoped, and the other one is like cluster scoped. And it looks like this, right? So you just define the replicated jobs here when you have your distributed nodes, and then you define how many, like, you know, what kind of, you know, torch parameters you want to set. Like, for example, like how many processes per node, how many workers you want to configure. Yeah, so yeah, for the fine tuning, we kind of like still trying to collect the feedback, like what runtime can, what kind of runtime can be used for the fine tuning. But the one idea could be like, you know, we just create the runtime with initializer, where we don't loading model, like we don't loading llama, and then we're using the some, you know, some dataset initializer, model initializer to initialize the default parameters, but user can also override it using the train job, right? And then inside the node, we just define the trainer, which will actually run the fine-tuning loop when data scientists want to perform the fine-tuning. And we can just pre-create some configurations, like what kind of LoRa parameters you want to use, what kind of, you know, configuration need for, you know, for different models. And then maybe if user wants to override the default parameters, we can always, you know, they can always do this using the train job API. Yeah, so, okay, any questions? Anything you want to discuss here? Right, so any other topics you have in the agenda today to talk about? I know we have, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering, what are some of your high priority tickets? I'm working on one currently, but just wondering if you have like some kind of a prioritization matrix for what is on the list.
Yeah, talking about training operator or Khatib tasks.
Both actually, yeah.
Yeah, so we still want to like construct the roadmap for, you know, 0.18 and 0. You know, 1.9 for training operator. So I think like definitely once we're finalizing this cap, I would love to get some help from the community and split the tasks between the folks. We have some good first issues that I know that you're already working on. So one of the priorities for Katie, for example, right now I have the problem with UI. I know you created the PR to fix it, right? So
Yep.
if you can help us to unblock all of this, you know, pending PRs, that will be amazing. Because the problem right now, we just cannot merge any UI PRs because we kind of blocked in the CI/CD.
Makes sense. Yeah, working on that one actually. I think I got half of it fixed. There's some other
Yeah.
tests that are still pending. Yeah.
Any problems you see on the how to update Kubeflow? What is it? Central dashboard node version?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, so I think I need to create a separate PR for that one as well. Yeah, so just waiting to fix all of the tests on the Khatib side before I make that PR. But I was also wondering, like, why is it that the Khatib UI is part of the Khatib repository when everything else is part of Kubeflow? Like, what was kind of the motivation for doing that?
Yeah, so the problem is like we try to, so 4 years ago, I know that we tried to migrate to the centralized, you know, components, UI components. And it was like a project migration from the. So the main motivation was to provide unified design language across multiple Kubeflow UIs. Whether it is notebooks, Ketib, or tensor boards, or model web apps. That is why we kind of like create these centralized components that we can use. So not all of the UIs lives in Kubeflow. So for example, Kserve UI, like models web app, that lives in the Kserve GitHub org. But I think right now we're trying to even split the repo. So I have this pending PR to completely remove everything from Kubeflow, and move them to the Kubeflow dashboard and Kubeflow notebooks. But eventually we want to split it, right? And I also know that there is so we have some pending work to create the Kubeflow design language. So there was discussion yesterday around what is the design language we want to use across multiple Kubeflow UIs. I think the problem is right now, like, we need to find someone who can maintain those UIs, right? And for example, like if we want to migrate to React, I know some people so we want to like migrate some of the UIs to React, and then like rewrite them using the new kind of UI kits and following the Kubeflow design language. But this is still in progress, and I don't know how much time it will take, right?
Makes sense.
So from the UI perspective, like Tari, can you let us know, like what is your kind of domain of interest? Like, do you want to contribute to the UI more or to the backend side of things?
I'm interested in just about everything in training operator or Ketib or Spark operator. So yeah, all interested in all three actually. Yeah. I was also wondering, like the Node version is kind of like it's still far behind because Node there's more updated versions of Node ahead. So yeah, 16 is still kind of a bit behind, I think, because all of the other components, some of the components I've seen are still using like 12, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, because the problem is we just don't have maintainers, right? Who can maintain those components.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Because quite a while ago, like it was Richter who was the main driver for all these UI components. And after that, like some folks left the company, so we just don't have right now maintainers for all of the UI components, right? Even central dashboard.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yes. We just, I know that we're trying to looking for people who can maintain those components as well, to provide enough, maintenance there. But like, I don't know, like, what is the long-term plan there, to be honest.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, I think like let's definitely unblock, some, KTPY at least, like, the CI/CD.
Yeah.
If we have some pending PRs, we can merge them. But other things, unit testing definitely, and other like especially for V2, there will be so much work we need to do. So if you're gonna help us with this, that would be really great.
Makes sense. I did say that there's some recent PRs that still got merged with the Ketib UI test passing. So I'm not sure how that was actually done because So some of the recent ones. So for example, if you look at the Ketib PRs, some of the recent ones, I see that they were successful on Ketib UI. So I was a bit confused as to how that actually ended up happening.
Yeah, I think so the thing is, like, we don't run UI test on not UI changes, basically, if I remember correctly.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so UI test is only run, if I remember correctly. Let me quickly take a look. E2A test UI. Yeah, if I remember, like, we just ignore, changes. We just ignore this pipeline when we just don't do the UI modification. So we only build the image and that's it, right?
But the UI tests are in publish core images and test node YAML, right? That's where the UI tests are.
Yeah, but the Cypress, I don't think we run Cypress test if we don't do UI changes, isn't it? I just don't remember where we do this, to be honest. Like
yeah, so test node.yaml on the left. I think that's where publish core images is one.
Test node, right? This one.
Yeah, test node. This is one. So right at the bottom, I think we're running some tests with Cypress.
So I think this test node is actually, as you can see, there's only like package UI and B2 one, right?
Yeah.
This is failing all the time, right? For all of the things related to the UI, right?
Yeah, this one is failing. This one is failing, as well as publish core images.yaml. We're running something there.
So the publish
We're
core,
running
yeah, would be right?
this one. These are the two ones that are failing.
So the building is not actually failing. Like on the existing version, like I can see that's, you know,
I see. So the existing version of the build doesn't fail.
yeah,
Makes
like
sense. Makes sense.
about the latest PR from here, right? Like for example,
Yeah.
if it's publish images, right? Yeah, Katip UI, right? So this one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying actually.
Yeah, this is working. I guess like in your PR it was failing because you're updating some versions, right?
I see. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
let us know. I mean, I can definitely pick some folks if you need some help, but I just like, what is the pending things there right now in your PR?
Yeah, so the pending things, I actually ended up migrating to version 16, and that and after some changes to the Docker file for Katib UI, it's running. It's running successfully. The Cypress tests are failing because of the upgrade to version 16. So just need to fix them, because with version 16 upgrade, there are some changes that need to be made within the code as well. So
Okay.
working on those currently to make sure that they go through. So that's where we are currently at. Yeah, but yeah, there's still some other components like Jupyter and tensor boards, volumes. The other ones are still using Node 12. But yeah, so I guess there's going to be a pending work in moving Katib UI to 16, and then also the CRUD web apps to 16. Yeah.
Do we need, so CRUD, like, is it enough to move CRUD web apps to the 16 to, you know, unblock the KDIP? Like,
Yeah, so the issue was that the issue was with the Docker file, and so the Docker file yeah, so the npm CI keeps failing all the time, and with the version 16 I was able to get a success on the npm CI, but with Node 14 I don't get a success anyhow.
okay.
With actually getting npm CI running. What does happen is if I use npm install, it does succeed, but with npm CI it doesn't succeed. Yeah, with version 16 I was able to get it to succeed. The Docker file is working now. Yeah, so it's an upgrade on
Yeah.
both the common library as well as UI. Yeah,
I think the question is like, if you upgrade the CRUD web app, like, can we build these other UIs within the version 12, right? Because I don't know.
yeah, I have that question as well actually.
I
So
think, but I guess like they just pinging to the commit, if I remember correctly. Like, you know, all these components like tensor board controller, for example, right?
yeah.
No, what is it? PVC viewer, where's the UI? CRUD web apps, volumes. Oh. So do they ping this Kubeflow to the commits? Because if their answer is yes, then we don't need to worry about, right? Because all these other web apps, they just ping to the specific commit, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. So try to just update the version for CRUD web app, and just to see if
Okay.
the CI will be passed, and then we can
Yeah.
you know, ping to this commit on the KTPY side, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. The other things again, I can definitely, you know, right now I have so many, you know, PRs, especially from GSOC folks. So Tarek, if you're gonna help, you know, us to review them, that would be amazing. I'm also trying to review,
Yep.
but we need, you know, some other folks to help with reviewing PRs.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Or any other questions? Sounds great. So in that case, let's definitely follow up on this. You know, I will definitely let you know once we merge this, you know, enhancement proposal, and try to see how we can split the work, how we can create the project and assign the tasks to the other members in the community. And again, like, if you have any other questions, feel free to ping us in Slack or create an issue in GitHub. All right, sounds good. Thanks everyone for your time. So see you in 2 weeks. See you everyone.
Thanks.